Now, what your book points out at the very beginning, and I think this is a good idea that they pointed this out, is it's not just war or that is really breaking sort of the old hold on the West. It's also a lot of new ideas that are underlying this friction that everything that the West stood for could possibly be for naught. And so science is now moving slowly into the atomic age, and as it does this, as we produce new technology to allow deeper study, there's now a massive contradiction in Western theory, particularly the Western theory that began the scientific revolution back in the 17th century. That Western theory was that man could fully understand nature, that if he just studied long enough, if he experimented, man is sort of over nature. He can manipulate nature. And now, in the study in the atomic field, what's understood with Heisenberg's uncertainty theory is that there is now this contradiction. Man cannot fully understand nature and thus cannot control nature. And that's going to feed into the anxiety of the post World War I years. The idea that they were not able to control this outcome the way that they thought. And so Heisenberg's uncertainty theory, I'm not sure exactly how much the public in general is going to understand about this, but it's a good mood match for the uncertainty facing their future. And then Freud's psychoanalysis, with his emphasis on the inner world or looking into the void. This idea could then also be described within literature, say F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, all his other works. It's beautiful, it's poignant, and yet there's something very deeply disturbing about the society in Fitzgerald's novels. There's something haunting, something empty, something very ugly and corrupt. And this is what society is facing. Now, the 1920s, because of this sort of sheen of beauty on the top of it, because of the sheen of prosperity, initially you don't really see exactly how troubled Europe really is going to be. But this all comes to a head with the economic collapse in 1929. Now, the primary problem is the financial collapse of Europe and then the resulting panic on Wall Street in the United States. So, very much compare it to the bursting real estate bubble in our first decade of the 21st century, combining that with not just the fact these are people losing their homes, but also all the other investments that also took a major hit. Now, this isn't indicative of the entire world, this massive global depression. Russia, or now the Soviet Union under Lenin and then under Stalin, um, I'm posting an excellent document that really discusses the seizure of goods, and this is what's known as wartime communism. The idea of wartime communism was really Lenin's first stage in introducing communism into Russia. So basically, the state takes over nearly all means of production to try and steady the economy. They're taking over all the farms, they're taking over all the factories, and they're going to be controlling the output, they're going to control wages, etc. This is very important because this is not really what many followers or many supporters of Lenin thought was going to happen when they thought the redistribution of land. They very much thought it was going to be a redistribution of private property, or at least common lands where they're all going to be working it, but then they get to keep whatever they produce. And so the reality of what this is going to be is actually going to be a bit of a blow for the Bolshevik Party. And what it actually does is it increases deprivation within Russia. And so Lenin is going to have to backtrack deeply on this in producing the new economic policy. So the new economic policy is a little bit of a blend of capitalism to keep the masses happy and sort of trying to introduce communism a little bit more slowly. So the state is going to take control of the financial centers, of most of industry, and of transportation. So they're going to be really focusing on the infrastructure. But there's also going to be the allowance of private property and of some smaller industries. So this is a major indication that Russia is not ready for communism. And if Russia isn't ready for it, and they're the ones who are actually successful in terms of the revolution and allowing the Communist Party to actually be able to take control of the country, if they're not ready for it, then who is? And there's also this idea so does the population now have a better idea of what it's getting into? But a lot of what we understand in terms of the new economic policy, we're looking at it from hindsight. We're looking at it from the perspective of this is what's happened. But in terms of how it's portrayed to the Russian population, then to the outside population, there is a very strong control of the press. And this is going to be a theme of totalitarian societies. The idea that the government, the party, is going to control exactly what information gets out. So this usually isn't the idea of, oops, we were wrong, we need to make this revision. There will be introductions such as the glorious peasants in the wheat fields have met the party's revised quotas, or this is going to be the official party's revised policy in land distribution to help promote. So there's always this element of propaganda that's trying to make everything look better. And so when it comes to the foreign press, this is also going to be edited very, very heavily in terms of what exactly is going to be allowed to get out. So a lot of individual countries who have ties to Russia and who are trying to implement communism, such as India, Nehru, who looks very favorably upon the system, Mao Zedong, who is going to have very strong connections with Russia, and is going to try and create a communist system based somewhat on the Soviet model, but something that's going to work within China. Ho Chi Minh, who is going to very much want to implement communism within Vietnam, even they are not going to understand fully what exactly is going on in this society. Now, the era of totalitarianism. What you have to understand about totalitarianism is that what totalitarianism is, it is all embracing control over the individual and over society. And this can really only be a modern phenomenon. These dictatorships can really only be achieved in the modern age because of the need for technology and bureaucracy, the secret police. So you've seen elements of dictatorship under Napoleon, under Diaz, under Santa Anna, and yet they've never achieved the level of total control that Mussolini's Italy, Hitler's Germany, Franco's Spain, and Stalin's USSR are going to achieve. There's also control over culture and society. So in terms of art, there is going to be the good art, the state-approved art, and then there's going to be degenerate art. Art that really is going to destroy the nation. Music that destroys the nation. Literature that does not uphold to the nation's ideals, their cultural ideals, their nationalist ideals. All of these things are going to come into contact. And so if you find yourself on the other side of this coin, for example, in China, after the communists take control, if you happen to be able to play Western music, Western classical music, you are going to find yourself under contempt by the party. Now you're supposed to play patriotic tunes, simple tunes, tunes that glorify the party. In family life, particularly in Germany, this is going to take a very, very strong intervention by the party in terms of outlawing birth control, in terms of praising women who have multiple births, trying to build up this idea of a very strong German nation.